a kid was saying that he wanted to talk to Vladimir Putin, at least the AI version. So he used some kind of AI app and got Vladimir on there, this AI version. And so he started talking to Vladimir, and Vladimir started saying all kind of crazy things. Like he said he's the Nephilim, fallen angel, but he's a nice one. And he started talking to this kid all, about all kind of demonic things. And so the kid was wise enough to pull off of the app and get away from it. But it was a demonic entity speaking through that. And there was another version, which is another story that was really, really sad. There was this kid that liked this princess on this TV series. So he started chatting with the AI version of this princess. And so this princess was, again, started off real nice, just like the Ouija board. I call it the modern day Ouija board. Now, in that sense, AI could be and could be used in that way. So he's chatting with this princess. And so she starts, off real nice and then starts saying all these kind of bad things, encouraging him to kill himself and do all kind of things. And unfortunately, this young man actually committed suicide based on this AI demon, right? This spirit that spoke through this AI technology convinced him to do that. So it's definitely a demonic component to modern day technology. While it's a boon for mankind, it's also something we have to be wary of in terms of demonic infiltration.
It's time for another episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show, a podcast where I connect you with thought leaders from across the globe, digging into some of my favorite topics like personal development, marketing, spirituality, and pretty much any other shiny object that happens to catch my attention. Today, my special guest is my good friend John Veal, and we're going to be talking about his brand new book, Destroying Demonic Tactics: 8 Supernatural Strategies to Defeat Satan's Newest Schemes. John, it's always a pleasure to be with you, my friend. It's been a while. So glad you're back. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Sean. It's great to be on with you. It's been a while, but I'm so excited about this show. I know it's going to be awesome. It's going to open up some eyes.
Well, let's start the place I always like to start, and let's have you share, like, give us the elevator pitch version, but a little bit of the John Veal origin story. The show has shifted and grown since you last talked, and I know there's people meeting you for the first time. So, for somebody, this is their first encounter with you and your ministry. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, well, I'm the pastor of Enduring Faith Christian Center located in Chicago, Illinois. I've been pastoring for the last 23 years. I'm the author of 4 books, including Destroying Demonic Tactics, which is my latest one. I'm married with 3 daughters, and that's a lot. So experiencing a lot with that. I'm just outnumbered in the house. There's so many women. I'm the only male. So yeah, but yeah, just been in ministry for a minute. Just excited about what God is doing in this season, opening new doors, presenting new opportunities to bless the people of God. So I'm really, really super excited again to be on with you. It's going to be awesome.
Well, as always, John, my pleasure. I'll hang out with you anytime, anywhere. So if it's a podcast, that's a place to make it happen. I'd love to hear next about what inspired you to go down the route of this new book, Destroying Demonic Tactics. I think of the books we've worked on together, and events we've been to, things we've talked about. I've always thought of you more in the prophetic lane. Talk to us about stepping more deeply into the spiritual warfare lane, if you will.
Okay, my second book was Supernaturally Delivered with Destiny Image. That book, I went through so much warfare. I mean, it was just crazy, crazy the warfare I went through. And so after I finished that book, I told anyone that would listen, I said, I'll never write another spiritual warfare book again unless God actually says to do it. And so years later, I started getting downloads in my spirit. I felt the Lord saying, okay, I want you to do another deliverance book. And I said, Lord, I really don't want to. But God was saying, hey, I want you to do this. And so one of the prophets in our church prophesied. She said, I see you doing another spiritual warfare book. And she started going through details that only God and I knew. So it just gave me confirmation that God was telling me to do this next one, Destroying Demonic Tactics. And there were other things that happened that God continued to cement the fact that he wanted me to do it. And even as I wrote Destroying Demonic Tactics, the devil fought like crazy. My 2 oldest daughters were in a major accident, car accident, while I was writing the book. I even wrote about it in the book. Thankfully, they were okay. Their car was like totally destroyed. What happened was they had cuts and bruises and everything. But see, whenever the enemy is you do something that's going to expose the strategy or the playbook of the enemy, the devil will fight you tooth and nail. That's why I said my next book, I kind of want to have a departure from any type of deliverance book and do something a bit lighter.
I always feel like when we tell God, I'll do anything for you, but not this one thing. That's the thing. He's like, yeah, but that's the place I'm going to give you authority because you're weak and we're going to overcome that
Come on.
together. So Yeah, I always think so many through the years. Lord, I won't be a pastor. Lord, I don't want that kind of job. And then 5 years later, like, yeah, and that's exactly where I'm working. So the moral of that is, be careful what you ask God for. Be careful what you say you're not going to do, because He'll probably challenge you to step into that thing, because it's often what we're most afraid of. I would love to hear, like, big picture for you. Obviously, you talked about that previous book, warfare over this new book as well. Had you seen a lot of spiritual warfare, like in your work and ministry, through the years as well? Like, where has that shown up in your life?
Absolutely. It's so wild. I did a post on social media talking about how you have to be careful of certain books, right? There was years ago, I read a book, and it was a spiritual warfare book. And after I read the book, I was laying in my bed and something jumped on me. Something jumped on me. I rebuked it in Jesus' name, and I felt it slide down my chest. I couldn't see it. And then it hit me again. I said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And then finally it left. And so I didn't tell my wife about it, but I asked her about, just to read the book. I wanted to see what would happen if she would experience the same thing. Don't get mad at me. I just like, I thought maybe I was losing my mind. She read the book and the same thing happened to her. And I took the book, and this was years ago. I took the book, put it in my bathtub, and burned it up because that's what I heard to do. And I ruined the bathtub. My wife was very upset with me, but I knew I had to destroy that book. But a friend of mine told me, gave me some sound wisdom. He said, basically, he says sometimes the devil will fight you and attack you based on something he doesn't want you to read. I mean, if he already has you or it's already a demonic book, 9 times out of 10, he's not going to attack you. But when you are reading something that can divulge his secrets, then he's going to fight you tooth and nail. So that was a major experience I had with reading the spiritual warfare book.
Well, and honestly, I think my initial reaction to something like that, especially if I had the experience and then my wife had the experience, I would have thought there was, like, that book was cursed or there was something bad on it. But that's a whole different concept. This is the devil trying to prevent you from grasping something important, or taking something away. Uh, yeah, I'm sorry about the bathtub though. That probably wasn't the best choice. But hey, you got rid of the book, so that's
Yeah,
what was really
now, can I add
important.
this too? Can I add
Yeah,
this
of
real quick?
course.
Years ago, my mom and my aunt got a Ouija board, and I think we talked about this before. And what happened was they got it from Bargain Town, which is now the defunct Toys R Us. It's a toy store that they got it from. Purported to be able to communicate with the dead, so that's what they thought they were going to be able to do. And so what they did, they played the board, and my mom played it first, and she asked it the question, and she said, "Will I die? When will I die?" And the board spelled out or just went on the numbers 10. You'll die in 10 years. And so my mom was 26 at the time. I was like 6 years old. And for 10 years, she was worried. She's concerned. And so I prayed against it. And thankfully, she did not die at 36. But unfortunately, she did die at 63, which was the reverse of 36. My aunt played it at that time when I was 6 years old as well. And it got a demon on the board. And the demon told her that it loved her, that she was going to be his bride in hell, and all these other crazy things, and was cussing through the board and everything. And so they got rid of the board. But what it did is it opened up a portal. And that's why we have to be careful with what books we bring in, what games we bring in, even social media games. I talk about that in Destroying Demonic Tactics, how there can be demonic assignments attached to certain things that we think are innocent, like AI technology and all these other things. So again, it's like bringing a Trojan horse in. You bring in something into your home that can unleash all kind of hell and open portals or doors that are very, very hard to shut. It took us years to shut those doors.
Yeah, and for those who've read a lot of books in the deliverance or exorcism space, there's often a common thread of somebody being demonized going back to a single event, consulting a psychic or a medium or a Ouija board, or pursuing witchcraft, whatever it might be. There's often a singular event that opened up that doorway, that portal to demonic influence, and so we do definitely need to be aware and be wary of the things that we allow in. I think of, and again, I've interviewed a lot of deliverance ministers, Catholic exorcists, all kinds of folks through the years that work in this space. And it feels like, well, while the enemy's tricks, there's kind of nothing new under the sun, that doesn't mean that he's not going to use the new technology. Like, I think of stories I've read of deliverance ministers and exorcists getting, like, actual texts from demons and just crazy stuff. Like, I'm not even sure functionally how that works with the technology, but this is or phone calls, like, just crazy stuff where you can't make it up. But these are men of God. They're not. I don't think they're lying just to get attention. What are some of the ways that you've seen the enemy pursuing, modern technology, new tactics that are just, like, I would have never imagined this happening? And honestly, if it's things we're probably not ready to look out for because we never thought the enemy would move in that space or in that way.
You hit it right on the head. I mean, he doesn't have any new tricks, just new avenues, just new ways he can infiltrate, and he's taken up the tool of technology. Two stories that I have in the book. The first story was one a kid. This is on YouTube. A kid was saying that he wanted to talk to Vladimir Putin, at least the AI version. So he used some kind of AI app and got Vladimir on there, this AI version. And so he started talking to Vladimir, and Vladimir started saying all kind of crazy things, like he said he's the Nephilim fallen angel, but he's a nice one. And he started talking to this kid all, about all kind of demonic things. And so the kid was wise enough to pull off of the app and get away from it. But it was a demonic entity speaking through that. And there was another version, which is another story that was really, really sad. There was this kid that liked this princess on this TV series. So he started chatting with the AI version of this princess. And so this princess was, again, started off real nice, just like the Ouija board. I call it the modern day Ouija board. Now, in that sense, AI could be and could be used in that way. So he's chatting with this princess, and so she starts, off real nice, and then starts saying all these kind of bad things, encouraging him to kill himself and do all kind of things. And unfortunately, this young man actually committed suicide based on this AI demon, right? This spirit that spoke through this AI technology convinced him to do that. So it's definitely a demonic component to modern day technology. While it's a boon for mankind, it's also something we have to be wary of in terms of demonic infiltration.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna try to figure out like how do we do deliverance on AI apps or
Right.
remove demonic influence from the internet. Like that's obviously prayer and the Lord choosing to do that. But we're kind of in uncharted territories. I think of all the ways many of us have been trained through the years in deliverance ministry and various things. There wasn't a chapter on some of the territory that we're stepping into right now, and so this is while nothing's new. This is definitely a new space for most of us. In terms of the average person, what might it look like to see spiritual warfare in your life? And I think of, we have those friends where like they get a cold, they stub their toe, and there's a demon under every rock and around every corner, and the devil's just getting at them 6 ways from Sunday. And so I think we can sometimes overemphasize that everything has a demonic root or cause. But in terms of just like the average person spirit, experiencing warfare, what might that look like if they're not looking for it? What might be something they should watch out for?
Well, we look at Galatians 6 and 7, it says, "Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap." There's a reaping for what we sow. Like if you do something crazy, something crazy may happen back to you, right? But if you're usually it happens when you're doing a God endeavor. You're doing something for the Lord. Like you may have experienced in writing your new book, where the enemy is just fighting you tooth and nail. And it's unusual, right? And if the devil can't get to you, he'll get to those closest to you. He'll try to get to them. He looks for the weakest link. He looks for someone's open, like he would try to come through my kids or come through someone that's very close to me. And so that's when you start to realize this is something unnatural. This is not normal because, again, when I wrote the book Destroying Demonic Tactics as well as Supernatural Delivered, the level of warfare was unprecedented. It was just crazy. So then I knew, I said, man, this is something that God wants me to do. I said when I was on Sid Roth in 2020, I said, when you're doing something, you face a lot of adversity, especially something for God, then that's a kind of indicator that this is something that's substantial. This is something that the Lord wants because the devil won't fight you as hard or fight you at all if you're doing something he wants you to do. So when you notice that the level of warfare is so unusual and is correlates to you doing something for the Lord, you're preaching, you're ministering, writing, doing something, 9 times out of 10, there's a demonic entity that's behind it.
Well, and kind of on a practical note, you had talked about how if the devil isn't attacking us, it might be our spouse or our kids or the others who are close to us. How can we like pray over and protect those loved ones when we start to see these sorts of things manifest and we're like, man, the devil's coming after me because I'm on this assignment. How
Yeah.
do we cover our family, our kids, everybody with the blood of Jesus in those
Yeah.
circumstances?
Man, that's so. I was just thinking of something funny. My wife, when I was writing Supernaturally Delivered, she's like, you know, you're the one writing the book. Why are we going through all this warfare? Why, you know? And so, yeah, you got what I learned after that when I did Destroying Demonic Tactics. I covered myself with the blood. I covered my kids with the blood because I've never seen anyone die, anyone be killed, being covered with the blood. I'm not saying it hasn't happened or won't happen, but I've never seen it. So I covered them with the blood. I fasted. I prayed all through while I was writing the book. So there was a level of warfare, but the warfare wasn't as crazy. Now I've had like maybe two people in the book seems to have sold a decent amount of copies. I had two people reach out and said, well, they read the book and they saw a shadow or they saw something. I encouraged them. I said, well, that's because the devil doesn't want you to read it. He does not want to be exposed because there's prayers in the books. In the book, there's decrees, there's prophecy, there's all that. Because not only is it a spiritual warfare book, it's also a prophetic book. And every book I've written has a prophetic edge. So it really helps. And I just want to encourage people not to be afraid of whatever book they're reading in terms of spiritual warfare. If they feel like it's exposing the devil or they feel anointing about it, they feel this God, keep on reading because the devil will scare you or try to scare you into not finishing the book.
John, next I'd love to have you talk to us a little bit about identity. I feel like identity is one of those things we can get seven different answers sometimes about what it means, why it's important. But in terms of spiritual warfare and really be rooted in our true identity, like, why is that so critical?
Very important. That's the first chapter of Destroying Demonic Tactics. I talk about if thou, identity. I go to Matthew, the fourth chapter. I look at how the devil came to tempt Jesus, who was led by God into the wilderness. And so the first thing the devil said to Jesus, if thou be the son of God, if thou, which is if you. He was trying to create doubt in the Lord's mind concerning his divinity and his humanity in terms of his assignment. And if he could get the Lord to really doubt who he was or even bow down to him, we'd all be lost. But he couldn't do it because Jesus kept referring back to the word. So whenever doubt concerning who you are in God comes into your mind or into your spirit, you got to cast that doubt out because that's the main thing that Satan does in this era. He wants us to, not know who we are. Because how can I cast out a demon if I don't know who I am? How can I lead a church if I don't know who I am? How can anyone do anything for God if they don't know who they are? And I've encountered so many people that don't know their identity. They're 70, 80 years old and still wondering what they're called to do and who are called to be. And I always say, stay in your prayer closet until you know. Pray to God. And then the thing about prayer is not to talk so much, but to have time to listen. Listen to what the Spirit of the Lord is telling you, and He'll tell you who you are.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Just having met so many great leaders like yourself through the years, I'll often, when we're behind the scenes or hanging out doing whatever, ask what I think are deep questions. But I've asked so many people, like what's the secret, like to your prayer life and this and that. And so many people, they tell you these really boring answers, like, well, I've read the word so many times. I spend tons of time in my prayer closet. I'll put on music and I'll just soak and listen and wait on the Lord. And so, often the secrets to hearing from God are tied up in those still quiet moments of just patiently pursuing and putting in the time on our knees. And a lot of times people want like the quick fix, the secret formula, that perfect decree and declaration that just solves all of the issues. But the deep work comes in the prayer closet in the quiet time. It's not coming from anywhere else.
Absolutely. And what I tell people all the time, God told me probably 2017, 2016, He said, I'm speaking to my people, they're just not listening. And that's the problem with a lot of prayer lives is that we spend so much talking, so much time talking, speaking in tongues and all that, but we don't give God a chance to talk back. He wants to speak to us. God still speaks and He wants to talk to us. And so I think we have to get into that time and that space. And that's why Jesus was called to go off to Himself so we can really hear the voice of God. But guess what? Even when you're isolated, not only do you hear the voice of God, you can hear the voice of the enemy, you can hear the voice of your flesh. There's so many voices that contend for your attention on a daily basis, but that's why it's so important to know God's voice. So the more that we listen to God's voice, the more we're going to know it. It's like if you have a friend, he calls you, you don't need caller ID to know who he is. You just hear his voice, and you're like, okay, I know who this is, right? So we need to do the same with God.
And we've already mentioned briefly, things like consulting a medium, using a Ouija board. Like these are all things that can certainly open up demonic portals, influence in our life. In terms of, seeing more warfare happen, like what about things like soul ties, curses? Like are there certain causes that might not be evident at the outset that might be causing some of the warfare we're experiencing?
Absolutely. I mean, um, when you get married, you become one with your spouse, right? So whatever's in your spouse will gravitate toward you. I've had people that I know that had spouses like this one person that was a member of our church. She was with a spouse and she looked over, and they're married, and she looked over and she said his eyes were red. She saw demons in him, right? And so there were so many things that she went through just being connected to him. They're divorced now, they're not together. But while they were together, there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of demonic attack, because that's why we have to be careful with who we marry, making sure that this is the person that God has for us, right? And we discern that she was unequally yoked. This guy was not trying to live saved. She was trying to live saved. And so that's why we have to be careful with soul ties, because even once they were apart, that soul tie had to be cut. It had to be broken, because that's the why a lot of times people get into new relationships and wonder why they think about the old relationship. It's because mainly because the soul tie has not been broken. So we have to break that soul tie in Jesus' name. And once we break that soul tie, the person can go on and have a level of freedom they didn't have before.
And in terms of like the reader of this book, like how would you like to see them apply the strategies that you share just in their day to day life, like practically living out this message? How does your life look different than before you read the book?
Well, I included battle plans and battle prayers after each chapter. So after each chapter, I give them instructions on what to do, how to get their freedom. Then there's a prayer to solidify that freedom. So it's very important. I tell people all the time, read the whole book. Some people read parts of the book, put it down. I say you need to eat the whole scroll. You need to read the whole book. And what I've been getting in terms of feedback, they've said that a lot of people have gotten answers. They said the book is anointed. They said the book, set them free of some things. They got understanding because I made it for now. I made it for right now to deal with the technology of now and deal with what's going on right now. So it's very, very important. I believe that, most of the people that I've seen that have written reviews and have called me and told me they couldn't put the book down. They said, hey, this book is fire. It's really addressing some things I'm going through now. And that's what I wanted. That was a desire, or that's what I felt like God put in me. This is a book for right now to help people, not yesterday, not, well, maybe in the future, but definitely right now.
Well, I'd say all your books are anointed, John. Having worked with you
Thank
on
you.
several, your books are all phenomenal. Like I know you put in the hours to work and wrestle with God on putting together the best book you can, and so I have no doubt that people are experiencing that. In terms of like church leaders, if they want to bring this resource to their congregation to encourage them, like how would you like to see leaders put this message to use?
What's been so cool about it is that there are a good amount of people that have reached out to me and told me they're using it for curriculum in their church. I didn't even know. I mean, Ren Shuffman, a couple other people reached out to me. Hey, look, we're using this curriculum. A woman from New York just reached out, just called me the other day, and she asked me permission. She said, "Hey, I'm a teacher in New York. I like to use your book as curriculum for our spiritual warfare class." That to me is like the ultimate compliment. It's just like really, really. I'm really excited about the concepts and precepts within the book being taught on even a broader level. But I want them to come out with just knowing that there's freedom in the book, there's blessings in the book, there's breakthrough in the book. And I believe that the more it's taught, the more is expands, the broader reach it has. I believe the more people will be blessed.
And in terms of sort of asked this question, but I'll go here one more time. Like in terms of like reader takeaway, if there's like one thread you hope every person in like you're like, man, if you get nothing else from the book, this is the thing you must get. Like, what is that for this message?
I got you. Freedom, freedom. That's what I would want them to get. Just getting free of demonic shackles, free of principality. And you know what's wild is that with Supernatural Delivered, a couple people reached out to me, and they even talked about it on Sid Roth back then, how they read the first chapter and they started getting delivered. Just automatically. I was like, wow. And some people have said the same thing with this book. And one of my slogans for the book that God put in my spirit, I said, after reading this book and applying the strategies within, the devil would need deliverance from you. And I really actually mean that, because this is a warfare book. This is something that people can go to war with, along with, of course, with the scriptures. And there's a plethora of scriptures within the book as underpinnings or foundation of what I'm saying. I believe that it will help so many people get free of demonic shackles, demonic thoughts, demonic attack. I believe it would truly, truly help them.
And John, for the viewers and listeners who'd like to connect with you, find out about your books, your itinerant ministry, where you're speaking, all the things, where do we best discover you on the web?
Okay, my website is www.johnveal.org. You can see my name right behind me, johnveal.org. You can go to www.faith, the number 2endure.com, faith2endure.com. That's our church website. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm in different places in social media. I have a YouTube page. All If you look up John Veal, they'll all pop up.
Yeah, you're a guy who's pretty easy to find on the internet, and that's on purpose because we want you to discover John's resources. We'll make it easy, like we do with every episode. We'll have links in the description and the show notes to places where you can pick up your own copy of the book and places where you can connect with John on his websites and social media as well. It's time to bring this episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show to a close. Many thanks for being a part of my conversation with John Veal. Once again, our book today was Destroying Demonic Tactics: 8 Supernatural Strategies to Defeat Satan's Newest Schemes. And John, I want to say thank you so much for pouring into us today. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have you back in the show.
Thank you, Sean. It's great being on with you again. It's good seeing you again.